So there's all sorts of different opinions about who Jesus is based upon what Scripture was predicting in the Old Testament. He's a prophet of some sort, and a prophet would teach and reveal what God wanted from his people. A prophet tended to criticize people and energize people. Here's what you got to look forward to that's good. Here's what you've been doing that's bad. And they would primarily talk about those two things. And so Jesus was just a glorified teacher with revelation from God. That's what most of the people thought. And here's the reality, is that misperceptions about Jesus are common. Right? That's part of the story. He was a prophet. He even says a prophet is not without honor in his hometown. When Jesus goes back to Nazareth, where he grew up, he tries to do a miracle there, and he says, I can't because nobody believes. And they're like, who is this guy? Isn't this Joseph's son? Isn't this Mary's kid? Little Jesus? Little Joshie? Maybe that's what they called him? I don't know. And he didn't feel like he fit in there. It was hard for him to do his work there. But he says, I was like a prophet there. But Jesus was more than a prophet. I mean, there are lots of things that people throughout history have thought about Jesus. Everybody recognizes that Jesus was a great teacher. He was a prophet of sort. He predicted some things that were going to happen, like the temple was destroyed, and then it was. Some people thought he was a great teacher. Some of the greatest lessons in the world, even in our public schools, do unto others as you want others to do unto you. That's not what the teachers came up with themselves. That's a Jesus teaching. Jesus is a great teacher. Some of the best stories we know, the prodigal son, be a good Samaritan. Those are Jesus's. So people will recognize that Jesus is a good teacher. But he's more than that. They knew that Jesus was a king. Even when he was on the cross, do you know what it said above his head on the cross? Anybody remember what it said? King of the Jews. And it was kind of a mock, but it was actually real. He was the King of the Jews. Are you the King of the Jews? They asked him. He goes, you got it right. And then Pilate put the placard up there. So yeah, he was a prophet. He was a teacher. He was a king. One of the things we overlook in our Bibles, when he fed the 5,000 people, in John's version of that, it says the crowds came upon them because they wanted to crown him as king. And you know what Jesus did immediately? He got out of there. He wasn't ready for their version of king because their version of king was not what he had in mind. Some people thought Jesus was a radical. That's where the Jesus Revolution movie recently, the Jesus movement from the 70s, Jesus who wears sandals and has long hair, and he's like, what's up, peace to you. But he wasn't about government, and he wasn't about following the rules, these Pharisees and their laws, blah. Jesus was radical, and he was, but that wasn't the whole story. Some people actually reduced Jesus to a magician. He did these cool tricks. He made blind people see, and he made all this food come out of a little bit of food. And he helped this guy who couldn't walk. He was a magician. Actually, I have a book on my shelf, Jesus the Magician. That's one view of Jesus, but it's not enough. He was a social worker. His very first sermon that we have in the Gospel of Luke, I came to help the poor. Came to help the needy. I came to help the oppressed. I'm here to set captives free. He was a social worker. That's true, but that's just part of it. He was a good man. Some people don't want to give him much more than, yeah, he was a good guy. Some people actually go as far as to say, well, if he actually claimed to be God, he was a lunatic. That's crazy talk. Who's God? Actually, in our day, everybody's a god. That's the way the American culture views the human being. We're all gods. But he was like the only guy. He was like, that's lunatic talk. So here's the thing about this. Misperceptions about Jesus are common. We all fall prey to these misperceptions. We reduce Jesus to one or a few of these and overlook the complexity of him. How you view Jesus shapes how you serve Jesus. And if you view Jesus as a prophet, you just want more revelation. If you view him as a teacher, you want more information. If you view him as a good man, you just want to be a good moral person yourself. If you view him as king, you expect him to take over and become president. If he's a social worker, you're about social justice. How you view Jesus affects how you serve Jesus. And if you think that he was a magician, you're just going to marvel at his cool parlor tricks, but you're not going to surrender your life to him. And this is why it's the most important question out there. Because how you view him affects how you serve him.